Welcome to the podcast editing and support show. My name is Dave. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go. We're going to start the episode right now. Happy to have you here. Let's do this. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Glad to have you back again. Yeah, so we are chatting about losing a client. Now, this is not the funnest conversation to have, Dave, but it has to happen and it will happen. And sometimes people will leave your podcasting, editing, and support business for many different reasons. Sometimes it's just they've stopped podcasting. That's okay. That's sad to see, but it can happen. But sometimes it's just not a good fit. And I just this past week lost a client. And it's sad. This podcaster and I have been working together for a while now. And he decided it was time to move to a different place. And he sent me a pretty nasty email, which was not fun. Like, I'm not putting that email in my happy folder. Put it that way. And so here's the fun thing. Okay, a little bit of background first. I am still working a full-time job, night job, 5 nights a week. And during the day, I respond to emails, I edit, I record my own podcasts like this. And I do all this stuff during the daytime when I really should be sleeping. Like most normal people who work nights, they sleep during the day. I'm up still during the day. And then on top of that, I have 2 grandchildren and my son living with us right now. So I'm helping to watch the kids during the day, which also cuts into my editing time and my email time. So this client, who I've been doing free, let me just underline that for you, free, one more time, free editing for the last 30, 40 episodes. Completely for, let me underline it one more time. I'll get a highlighter here too. Free. I've been doing this for free for them. And their complaint was that I wasn't responding to emails quick enough. And they were it seemed like in the email, I'm paraphrasing and adding a little bit of Dave to the email, that they were kind of babysitting me. And, did I really want, I know they don't listen to the show, so I won't name them, but basically it just felt like they were like fed up. And I wanted to send off an email that kind of just said, hey, listen, buddy, we were working on a plan to work together and into the future. And because I'm doing this for free and I'm not making any money from you, I'm not charging you a penny, I still have to work. I still have to feed myself and pay my mortgage and my car and all that. So, I'm not available 24/7. So I want to share a few thoughts about maybe some things that you need to consider when you're setting up your initial consultation with a new client. Some things for you to consider, some things for you to talk up in the beginning so that you're both on the same page. We did talk about this. I think they forgot or they took advantage of me. One of the two. It'll happen. But let's share a few things to think about and maybe bring up on your next onboarding call with a new potential client. Yeah, it sucks when you lose somebody that you admire their podcast, you admire what they do, and they've decided to move on to another podcast editor. But until I can turn this into a full-time business, which I don't know how that's going to work in the future, I'm still working. I still have to balance it all. So, I didn't respond to emails within 10 seconds. Got me. Because I'm sleeping. It's very hard to email somebody when you are asleep, just so you know. There we go. So part of my strategy, and you might not like it, you might not agree with it, but I do free editing for clients to get them up and started. The goal was I want to get some references and some recommendations to put on my website, some real, true representation of what I do for people and how I help them. So that's one part. So I wanted that from the people I'm working with. Sadly, after all these episodes and all this extra work, putting aside my stuff and my sleep to do this for somebody one more time for free, they decided to go with somebody else, and they're going to pay them. That's fun. So somebody else is getting my client, which is anyway. So the whole process was, I want to get a review, I want to get a recommendation. That's great. But the other part is, I want to show them that what I do for podcasters is far beyond ums and removals and throwing on some music at the beginning and the end and packaging it up. That's it. Like, I want to show them there's so much more to what I offer beyond the basics, right? And that's where we were heading. We were heading in that direction. They were starting to ask for coaching. They were starting to ask for how to improve the show, which is all good indications that we were on the right path. But then they gave up and they made a change, which is fine. That's their call. So a couple things to think about. And one of them would be, when you're sitting down to talk to a new podcast client, is ask these questions. I would encourage you to find out the communication style of the podcaster you're working with. This person in particular would send me some of the most uninformed emails with very difficult to understand directions that I had to decipher on my end. And then back and forth emails, back and forth, for them to qualify and quantify what they said in the initial request for an edit for that episode. So it took a lot of behind the scenes patience and time to get to the heart of what they wanted to be done with the episode. So here's an example. Get an email from my client, and he says, take this 2-hour podcast and turn it into 30 minutes. That was the email. Now, when we sat down and originally talked about this, he was looking for me to do basic audio editing, make it sound better, make it sound the guests better, because the guests are always record on laptop mics or the worst possible equipment. So if you can make my guests sound better, that'd be great. Throw on the music. And here's a couple edit points. Done. Great. I can do that. But when you get a content edit request, and my client has no idea what a content edit request is which they sent to me, they wanted me to listen through the content and remove the boring parts from the episode. Now, I don't know the topic. I don't know the guest. I don't know what questions and answers that the host wants. So I took a stab at it. I tried my best, and I sent it off to them, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the edit. They thought they wanted more of them in the edit. They wanted more of this and more of that and a little bit less of that. And why would you take this out? Why didn't you put this in? Again, no parameters on what they wanted. They just gave me free rein to take 2 hours and make it 30 minutes. I can get out my scissors. I can cut all kinds of stuff. Again, I've got over 2,200 episodes of my own shows. I know how to edit. I know how to edit a podcast and make it sound good. So I'm willing to do that, but you have to be willing to let me do that. That's the other part. So there's that kind of message. The other thing would be, around communication style, would be to make sure that, find out what works for them. Do they like email? Do they like text? Do they like a phone call? Because some people, like me, who are sleeping at 2 p.m, because I work nights, prefer an email, because then I can email you back at 3 a.m. when I'm at lunch, on my lunch break at work. So I just have the opposite schedule of you. And that's not a problem. It can be worked on. People use people in other parts of the world to edit for them, and they have a completely opposite schedule than the host. So it works. I know it works. And I know it can work. And I always respond. Just not immediately, because I'm sleeping. So I would get emails from this host, and he would send me stuff, and we have a shared Google Drive, and he would put in his part of the interview, his track, guest track, and the outro. So I would do all the work, send it off to them, and they would come back and say, well, you didn't do the intro. Where's the intro? And I would point them back to the Google Drive and say, there is no intro in here. I've taken the files that you said were complete and created the episode. And they're like, no, you forgot the intro. No. I'm like, You didn't put the intro into the file folder. So here's the communication breakdown, right? This is what's happening. So I caught on to that early, that sometimes they're not the best with organization. And so I would say to them, hey, I notice there's no intro, there's no outro for this episode. I notice you're missing this, I notice you're missing that. Do I have everything I need? And then you wait, I go to bed, get up, and there they are, right? So, or, this was fun too, they would say to me, in the communication style again, they would say to me, I'm missing this episode number. Like, this episode is missing from the shared drive. And I would screenshot it, and I would grab a link to it. It's already there. They just had it. They didn't see it, and I would send it back to them. So there's a lot of that going on, back and forth. And as a podcast editor and support person, you need to know how organized your client is, because if they are a distracted squirrel and they're all over the place and you can't nail them down, you can't get an answer in the appropriate amount of time, and now your deadline is pushed back because they're not ready, and you're just playing tag through email. It's very frustrating. So when you're meeting with your client, setting everything up from the beginning, get a sense of their preferred communication style, how they want to be communicated to, what works for them, what doesn't, and make sure you have some of these conversations, because it's really going to help you in the long end. The other part of this too, and I would also encourage you, if you're going to do like me and do a free onboarding group of episodes, just a proof of concept, build a relationship, and you offer your services for free, that you have a beginning and an end date to this arrangement. So it's 5 episodes, 2 episodes, 10, a month, 2 months, something. It needs to have a clear end date. And then what I would do is I would put in a calendar invite to that client just prior to the end date, while you're still editing for them, so that you can meet, talk about what happens when this agreement ends and how they want to move forward. Here are my rates. Here's what I've done for you. And at that point, if it's a matter of, well, I can't afford it, then you have the opportunity as the editor to extend it if you wish, or you can part ways. But I would ask, as part of my agreement with them, is to provide a reference and review. You do not want to do all this work, like I just did, and not end up with a review and a recommendation from your client. When you're working together, everything's great. But at the end of the relationship, not everything is as great as it turns out to be. So keep that in mind. At some point, maybe the halfway mark, you ask for that recommendation and put that into your plan, into your agreement, and into your conversation. So halfway mark, you're going to give me a recommendation. And about the 3/4 of the way, close to the end, we'll sit down and talk about next steps and what happens when this relationship comes to a completion. Don't just have open-ended agreements with these people, because unfortunately, like in this situation, they take advantage of you. They use up your time, your talents, your abilities, and then they just walk away. And that's unfortunate. I don't want that to happen to you. So please have a beginning, middle, and end to this agreement, and make it all spelled out. Come up with a basic document. You don't need to get a lawyer for all this and sign up. You just need something in writing saying, here's what we're agreeing to. Yes, good, okay. And then put it into your calendar. Have a reminder so you don't forget. And then have that halfway meeting with them for the recommendation that you can post to your website. And then at the end, have that talk pre-scheduled so they know what's going to happen. They already know, and they know your rates. And then it's a matter of, okay, from out of my rates, what are we going to do? What do you need? How can I serve you? Now that I've done this many episodes for you for free. So keep that in mind. So the big thing in all of this is I just want you to not be bullied by your clients. That's not fair for you. You are giving a service. You are a service-based industry. Just like you wouldn't be abusive to your server at a restaurant, or the person who does the cash at your store, or the person who does the oil change on your car. You're not going to be abusive to them. They're providing you a service. So you treat them with respect. You deserve respect. So when you find that the relationship is falling into disrespect, when you're finding that you're not getting the details and the information you need to do your job well, and then they blame you for not doing your job well, a lot of it can fall back on their shoulders for not giving you the information that you need to do the things you need to do. So make sure that you protect yourself. You can fire your clients just like they can fire you. You can say, this is not working. This was our agreement. You're not holding up your end. This is done. And give your notice and then be done. You never want that to happen. You never want to leave on bad terms. But it is going to be a reality in a service-based industry that people are people. And some people are great. Some people need a little bit of coaching. So keep that in mind. Definitely keep that in mind. And one last thing too is, as I go through these edits and work up for this client, I can see where they're struggling. I can see where a great concept idea for a show, when I first started with them, how they wandered off into the desert and their content has changed. Their guests are different. The tone of the show is different. The host seems bored on the mic. I can tell that this gentleman, the host of the show, is losing his passion for the show by listening to him and how he shows up with his guests in the interviews. So as a podcast editor and support person, that's why the name of the show is Podcast Editing and Support, we do more than just edit. We also pick up on these cues and these clues that our host is in need of some help. And the more podcasters you work with and the more episodes you do on your own, the more you realize these little warning signs, these flashing lights, that this podcast is going to crash if this host doesn't make some changes. So speak up, share your thoughts. I tried with this client and they didn't want anything to do with that. All they wanted was editing, even though they know that I do this and I help people all the time. And they still thought that everything they did was amazing. And it wasn't. It wasn't. They needed a lot of work. And they needed some coaching on how to be a better interviewer, how to listen better. Stop talking over your guests so much. There's so much where they were losing track of their conversation. They forgot what the questions were. They would tell me in an email, there's no content editing, just throw on the intro and outro and be done. But when I'm listening through it, right in the middle of the interview, the host would say something like, yeah, I'll just cut this out. And then they'd continue talking. And if I hadn't have listened to the episode and followed their instructions of just throwing on the intro and outro music and not paying attention to the content, I would have left that in and it would have sounded terrible. Because they kept saying, I'll cut this out. We don't have to keep this in, but let's talk about this. And I had to go through. And I almost got caught not listening to the episode because they told me not to. But I did it anyway. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I would release this with that in there, there was some stuff that was some pretty damning comments and things that the guest did not want sent out into the world, that were not on any notes for any removal or cuts or take this out, any of that. And I would have just pushed it through had I not taken time to listen. So I was going, from my perspective as an editor, I was doing my due diligence. I was going above and beyond what was required. I didn't take emails at face value. I did the research. I listened to the show. And I did my best to make it as best as possible with the time that I have while still working, watching 2 grandchildren, creating my own podcast, trying to sleep sometimes, and answering emails and helping other clients and coaching as well. Doing all of this at the same time, giving my best. This client still decided to go to someone else and pay them for all of the things I was doing and more for free. So protect yourself. Make sure you have these conversations in advance. And if you decide to do what I do and do free editing to get people in the door, then just make sure that you have a clear path for how you're going to transition your free services that you're offering as an introductory into a paid version. And make sure you map that out. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it open-ended with no end date. It's going to come back and bite you. Do that. And I'd love to hear more about your podcast editing and support business and maybe some of your stories. If you want to come on the show as a guest and talk about your journey in podcast editing and support, I'd love to have you on. We'll compare notes. And it's always nice to spend time with somebody who does what you do. And we can have kind of shop talk around podcast editing and support. Love to have time with you. Podcasteditingandsupport.com. Come on, let's go. Thanks for being here. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Podcast Editing and Support Show. Visit us at podcasteditingandsupport.com. Podcasteditingandsupport.com. We would love to help you find a great podcast editor, or if you want to hire us, we would love to work with you. Podcasteditingandsupport.com. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.